Good morning, CVUU, and happy 4th of July. I'm recording my portion of today's message in the midst of attending this year's virtual General Assembly. It has been such a joy to gather with UUs from all across the world, to gather with colleagues in ministry, and to hear from leaders of our denomination as we continue to navigate how to be the collective in a time of pandemic. This year's General Assembly has focused heavily on our collective trauma and our collective grief and our collective healing as we navigate how to move forward into a future that is accessible to all of us. One of the things that has always struck me about our religion, but continues to strike me every time that I gather with UUs, is the way that our religion centers the voices of marginalized identities. There is a recognition in Unitarian Universalism that our liberation, or as our Universalist ancestors might have said, our salvation, is a collective endeavor. You've heard me say before, we aren't all free until we all get free. But on this July 4th, and in the midst of being with other UUs, it strikes me again and again how this is a foundational aspect of our religion. This morning's message is a little bit different. In recognition of July 4th, I've reached out to several congregants and I've asked them to answer two questions. The first is, what does patriotism mean to you? And the second is, what are some of your hopes when you envision the future of this country? Those who responded will be featured in today's message. I hope that you hear in these videos the diversity of thought within our congregation, while also recognizing the threads that weave us all together. Now, you hear from me a lot about a lot of different things, but I have a feeling that some of you could more or less accurately guess what some of my thoughts are when it comes to patriotism and this July 4th holiday. I'll share a little bit of those thoughts with you, but one of the intentions of today's message is to hear from some other folks, to expand the pulpit, as it were. I will share with you that to me, patriotism means loving one's country while demanding that it do better. And we demand that it do better through political action, through social engagement, and through collective efforts of justice seeking. Patriotism, to me, means an acceptance of the totality of this country's history, with an emphasis on the histories of those that have been previously silenced. And I'm speaking specifically about Black and Indigenous American citizens. For me, patriotism is a focus on love of the citizens of this country, with a hope and a drive towards actual equity, actual justice, and actual liberty that is accessible to all people. That's the surface of my thoughts. And from there, I'm going to conclude, and I'm going to pass it on to whoever follows me in this video. I hope that you enjoy today's message. I hope that it inspires you, that it encourages you towards conversation, and I look forward to the conversations we'll have post-message. Amen, and blessed be.
Patriotism is a support for a system or a country, no matter your differences. To me, patriotism means we put our opinions, religious views, or status quos aside to help our neighbors in times of need. When a tragedy hits, we show our support through volunteerism, monetary donations, and whatever other forms that you may show support. We do all this because we want our country to succeed as a whole and not as broken up pieces. I also think patriotism is being proud of the country that you live in, and that they generally stand up for the rights of every citizen. And also being proud that our country steps up when there's threats to humanity around the world, no matter the cost.
When I think about patriotism, I think about the charge that's often levied against activists who want to make things better. That their acknowledgement that things are not currently perfect is somehow unpatriotic. But I don't think that's right. I think my patriotism, my love of country, is itself the reason for my activism and advocacy. Because I love my country, I support and vote for certain candidates in elections. Because I love my country, I believe it can be better. Because I love my country, I believe that it can live up to its highest ideals of liberty and justice for all. So that's what patriotism is to me. To love my country so much that I devote myself to what I believe is its benefit.
To me, patriotism is simply love of country. It's the feeling I get when the Star-Spangled Banner is sung at a public event. It's the feeling of pride I get when thinking of a better life millions of immigrants have achieved by moving here. It's the feeling of awe I get when flying over the country and seeing the farms, cities, mountains, deserts, and lakes that compose the physical attributes of our land. And the feeling of being part of something greater than me when I vote or when I have participated in the military. And the gratitude for the freedoms we have. It's tempered by the fact we have a history of slavery and also prejudice and mistreatment towards a number of other ethnic groups. Patriotism means acknowledging that history and doing the best we can to raise up the disadvantaged in our society. We'll never have a perfect society, but we can continue to make progress.
So this might sound a little cliche, but I hope our country holds a future where everyone feels safe to express themselves and to pursue their dreams. I hope we have learned from our history books, old and new, and we keep moving forward with minimal setbacks. I hope we can teach about systematic racism, so one day we can end it completely. And lastly, I hope our country can shift its efforts to focus more to improve humanity instead of making decisions or starting wars based on business or economics.
I hope for so many things. I hope that the conviction of George Floyd's murderer is a tipping point that drives us toward racial justice. I hope that by the time my nieces enter the workforce, they can expect to be paid the same as a man for the same work and face less gender-based discrimination and violence than the generations that have come before. I hope we will realize that immigrants make America great and that supporting them in building their American dream is to our collective benefit. I hope that we will embrace science and take serious steps toward combating the climate crisis. Like I said, I believe that we can live up to our highest ideals, and I hope that in my lifetime, I will be able to see us move in that direction.
I can hope for a few things. To help fight climate change, I hope we can continue to transition from fossil fuels for land transportation and power generation to renewable resources. We'll also always have a need for petroleum products, but hopefully at a greatly reduced level from what we use now. We can't do it alone. We must find ways to help the rest of the world follow the same path. My hope is that we can foster the international cooperation to do so. I hope we can continue the good aspects of our free enterprise system to allow for continued growth in our economy. We need it to pay for our future social needs like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Congress needs to adjust financing for these social programs as well. We have a great need for a skilled, educated workforce. I hope we can increase our efforts to train those who need it to thrive in our economy. We also need much more support for childcare services outside the home to facilitate workforce participation. Australia has had no mass shootings since it outlawed military-style weapons and handguns and allowed only hunting firearms for sport. I'd hope for a better similar gun buyback here, but I know that's more of a fantasy than a possible reality. The internet has been a blessing and a curse. We've always had crackpot ideas in this country, but their spread was limited. Now any fake facts conspiracy theory can instantly disseminate. I hope ways will be found to teach students and all of us how to distinguish fact from fiction on what is put on the internet. I have hope and faith in the American people will continue to rise to meet the challenges of the future as they have in the past.